Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar with Netstock and Leverage Technologies. I'm James Rodder. For some of those out there, you would recognise me. For others, you may not. I look after the Leverage MYOB Advanced team. And today we have a few members from the Netstock team that will be taking us through their solution that handles and optimizes your inventory. So we have Andy on the line. We also have Rebecca and Brad that will be assisting throughout the webinar and taking you through the solution. We're targeting that the webinar will take around 45 minutes. If you do, with a Q&A at the end of the session, if you do have any questions that you'd like answered at the end, please use the Zoom Q&A panel. And what I'll do is I'll read them out at the end for the Netstock team to respond to. So please, if you do have any questions, it's the best time to ask now. You know, we've got the key people at Netstock on the line, so you'll be able to get answers quite on the spot. If there's anything that needs to be taken offline, please reach out to either Leverage or Netstock to have a discussion about your MYOB Advanced solution and your organization and how it can best fit you. So what I'll do now is hand it over to the Netstock team, Andy, to take you through Netstock. Andy.
Beautiful. Thanks very much, James. All right, look, thanks all for attending today. And essentially what I'm going to do is take you through some slides, and then we're actually going to dive into the software and cover some of the concepts that we talked about in terms of the content for the webinar. So in most environments, we find that people typically have these sorts of challenges. They have lots of stock outs, but at the same time, they still have excess stock. They find that they're spending an inordinate amount of time in actually compiling the information to do the replenishment, and they're really struggling to put together some good forecasts. So those are the typical kind of issues that most companies have in the inventory space. Now, what you would expect to get out of implementing Netstock is the first thing would be an improved fill rate based on the target fill rates that you're trying to achieve. So you'll enter in the fill rate targets that you want to achieve. The system will then compute the ideal level of stock to support that. The key word here being optimum. So it works out the right stock for the right items at the right locations. We've then created a process that enables you to do your ordering as efficiently as possible. You have one-touch replenishment reports and things like that, which we'll have a look at towards the end of the webinar. And then we expect you should get an improvement in your forecasting accuracy. So the very first thing that we need to try and understand is, why do we hold inventory? If your vendors always delivered on time and in full, and you could predict exactly what you were going to sell and when you were going to sell it, then inventory optimization would be easy, or inventory management would be easy, because all we'd need to do would be to match supply with demand. As the stock arrived, it would appear on the warehouse floor and your customer would arrive to take it away. The only thing kind of forcing you to hold inventory might be things like minimum order quantities, minimum production runs, minimum transfer packs, and those sorts of things, or trying to fill containers. But essentially, the management of inventory would be really easy. So the real reason we hold inventory is to cater for things like our vendors delivering late and under-delivering, and us underestimating future demand. Now, in both of those scenarios that I've described up above there, what you have is the risk to your stock availability, or the risk of running out of stock. So take two products, one where we have a nice smooth demand pattern, our vendor delivers quite reliably, and another product where our vendor is a little erratic in their deliveries, and it has a very patchy demand profile, so it's quite difficult to forecast. Those products need vastly different levels of stock to provide the same level of stock availability. So this is one of the key fundamentals that we need to take cognizance of when trying to determine how much inventory should we be holding. Now, most environments you find you have this issue. Salespeople are wanting to have as much stock as possible because If we run out of stock of something, potentially we could lose the sale or maybe even lose the customer if we constantly running out of products. From a finance perspective, the focus is constantly on trying to reduce inventory, have the lowest level of inventory we can have, make sure our stock turns are up. And then whoever's having to do the planning, whoever's having to do the planning or do the purchasing has to try and resolve the balance between these two functions. So what Netstock does is it provides you with a platform to be able to enter your business goals. What fill rate targets do you want to achieve? What products do you want to stock? It will then compute the ideal amount of inventory you need to invest in to support those fill rate targets and strategies. It'll also work out the stock turn to support that. You now have the capability to model a variety of different scenarios, and that'll always work out the ideal model level to support those. That's from the one side. From the other side, it's going to respond to the risk in the business. And risk, as we saw, has those two main drivers. How reliably can we forecast, and how good are our vendors at delivering on time and in full? Risk is then multiplied by things like the length of the lead time, how frequently you place orders, any constraints imposed upon you by your vendor, minimum order quantities, pack sizes, etc. So once Netstock determines your risk and those risk multipliers, it works out how much risk you have in your business and then ensures that the amount of money you invest in inventory is driven by your business strategies and is optimized to cover the risk in your business. It also ensures that every recommended order then falls in line with your inventory policy and targets. And of course, if you change those policies and targets, then again, it'll automatically be reflected in a changed replenishment plan. Okay, just so we understand, we have a pre-built set of integrations for Netstock. It can integrate with MYOB XO Advanced, with Sage product X3 300, and with SAP B1, to mention a few. Once we've loaded our integration, which generally takes us a couple of hours to in worst case scenario, probably a day, the data is then automatically flowing from your ERP to Netstock in the cloud. And as Netstock is a pure cloud product, you access the product via any kind of browser, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer, whatever you're comfortable with. The system will then produce three types of outputs: recommended works orders in the manufacturing environment. So it'll deal with things like bills of material, kits, and all of that type of stuff. We won't really cover that too much in the webinar today, but it does deal with those sorts of things. It'll also create recommended purchase orders and recommended transfers if you have a distribution network. You review those in Netstock, press a button, and they go back on demand into your ERP, be it MYOB Advanced or Sage or SAP B1. Now let's actually dive into the software and have a look at a few of these things in a real life scenario. So firstly, what we'll do is we'll have a look at an individual product, and we'll look at a few kind of items to try and understand these key inputs. So out of your ERP, as we said, we get all of your basic information: your costs, your selling price, your vendors, your groups, your historical sales, your purchase orders, your custom orders, and so forth. So all of that flows through automatically, and literally after we've connected. So if we connected to your system this morning, this data would be available this afternoon or by tomorrow at the worst case scenario for each and every single item, and would automatically be refreshed overnight or on demand as you run. Now let's have a look at some of the elements and the risk things that we've been talking about. So firstly, we'll get all of your sales history, and what we're looking at here, we obviously have a set of data that's a bit old. This tells us when the data was last refreshed and how many hours ago we refreshed it. Normally that would be in black because this would be running live and the data would be continually being refreshed. Whereas in this case, we've obviously frozen the data to some time in the past and just kept this as a demo type scenario. So here we are in August. That's the current period. We're 8 days into August. We sold 150 in the first 8 days of August, and here are our sales figures stretching back over time. The system will automatically create a forecast for us for each and every single item. And then on a daily basis, we'll track the accuracy of that forecast. So we're 8 days into August, we're about 25% through August, but we sold 29% of the forecast. So if we continue to sell at this rate, obviously we will oversell the forecast. The system will track all of our products and highlight those on our dashboards where we're selling more or less than we expected. Now, any forecast in the system can be manually overridden at an item, at a group, or a company level. So we could tack into this forecast. We could change any periods we like, put in whatever numbers we like. Whatever numbers we stick in will automatically reflect in a final or changed forecast, even though the computer forecast will remain in the background. If we like the computer profile, because it has all of these advanced algorithms, seasonal models, binomial distribution, exponential smoothing, Croston's method, and so forth, and it's testing every item to see which algorithm best suits that product. So generally, it'll try to pick up whether it's a seasonal, whether it's got growth trends, and so forth. And you can now see that it's sort of got quite a nice trend there, reflecting how we've been sort of selling this seasonally in the past. Now, if we wanted to make a more global change, we could select whatever periods we like. We could add, subtract from the forecast, or we could drag the forecast up and down. And seeing it looked like we were under forecasting a little bit, let's drag that up. We can click on that, and here we can now see that it's now changed the forecast. And if we continue to sell at this rate, it now looks like by the end of the month, we're going to sell pretty much 588, because our daily selling rate and our current forecast are pretty much in line with each other. The software will do a number of things around the forecasting. For example, it'll record whenever you run out of stock. So here we can see we ran out of stock for 20 days. It's highlighted by that little bar graph over there, and the previous month for 5 days, and so forth. It will take cognizance of those lost sales. And over here, you can see it says, well, actually, if you'd had the available stock, you could have sold 1,679, not the 768 that you did sell. So consequently, when I create my future forecast, I'm going to take cognizance of that fact and actually increase the forecast rather than decrease it, because you could have sold more if you'd had the available stock. It can also do things like chop off one out project. So here, for example, if you looked at this sales profile, you can see that in this period, we've actually sold a lot more than we normally do. And the system has picked up that that's an anomaly, and therefore it's chopped that peak out, and then the future forecast has been modified accordingly. Now, this is all part of parameter setting. We can chop out peaks if we want or not. We can take account of stock outs or not. It's all dependent on how we want to operate. But the key thing here is, no matter how good our forecasting is, it's never going to be perfect. And the key thing here is to make sure that we actually monitor the forecasting performance automatically. And what I'm looking at here, without too much detail, is all the forecast shots we've had at a specific point in time. So if we had a look at a specific period here, let's say we were forecasting for August. When we were in May, we forecast 972, and then in June, we adjusted that forecast and so on through time until we actually got to August, where we froze the forecast, and that was the final forecast. So it's recording all of those, distilling for us the forecast history and comparing that to the sales. And here the reds are indicating under forecasts. You know, we forecast 785, we sold 816. We've been under forecasting here. So it distills the overs and under forecast, and from that it distills this thing called forecast risk. Now, this is a key element in helping us decide how much inventory we should hold, one of the elements. Here we can see it saying, look, it looks like lately you've been over forecasting this product. And consequently, when we work out this safety stock or this ideal level of buffer stock that we need to hold to support us from not running out of stock, we will use this as an input to computing this. And in this case, it looks like we've been over forecasting, so we can actually shrink away some of the safety stock. Because remember, the only reason we keep safety stock is to cater for under forecasting, selling more than we expected, or late and under delivery from our vendors. So from a forecast side, it distills that thing called forecast risk. I'll get to the explanation of this in a moment. But we do the same thing on the supply side. So this product, we believe, takes 45 days to get to the ABC warehouse from the Consolidated Tire Company. But if we have a look at the data, and of course this data is available immediately on connection to your ERP, we can see how this vendor has actually been delivering. We think we get deliveries in 45 days, but actually it's more like 56 days. And we can see there have been a number of late, some early, and even a short supply. If we just have a quick peek into the raw data, we can see when we ordered the product, when it was receipted into stock, how long that took, what did we order, what did we get. Scroll down a little bit. Here we can see I ordered 285, only got 55. So from a supply side, we have pretty much the reverse scenario that we have with the forecasting side. If we're ordering on a 45-day lead time, we're constantly running out of stock. And this is a typical kind of scenario you would expect now during COVID, when there's constrained supply, businesses are closed, difficulty in getting raw materials and components, and often vendors are delivering late. So here we can see I need to add at least 11 days back into the safety stock, because if I'm ordering on a 45-day lead time, I'm always running out on average by 11 days. But even if I had a 56-day lead time, that doesn't quite cut it, because they're delivered in 69 days and they're short supplied once, and that's where the risk element comes in. So now, based on that risk profile, we set a target fill rate, and I'll show you how we can set this at a global combined level. And it uses that data to compute the ideal level of safe stock. So for the 98% fill rate, which means 98% of the time when my customer comes to the ABC warehouse, that stock is going to be available for them directly off the shelf. We need to hold 21 days worth of safety stock. Now let's just quickly flick down to the dashboard, maybe pick up another product and see what that looks like. So here's an alternative product, happens to be a potential stock out product, same fill rate target, 98%, but look at the amount of safety stock we need to hold. It's almost 4 times as much as the previous. It's pretty obvious when we look at the data. You know, here we think the vendor delivers in 90 days, but let's have a peek. He delivered in 120, 128, 133, 151. It's progressively getting worse. What about the forecasting side of the equation? Well, here you can see we've got a very broad band of variance between what we've sold and how we've been changing and amending that forecast over time. And we can actually see over here, we manually adjusted the forecasts and we missed out quite badly by about 45%. So from this perspective, we actually have significantly higher risk, both from a forecasting and a supply perspective, and consequently, I need a lot more safety stock. So Netstock is automatically optimizing the safety stock by item, by location, based on the risk profiles of the items and the target fill rates you want to achieve. So now let's quickly complete the equation, look at the replenishment side, and then see how we raise this up to a more summary level. So if we go back to this previous product that we had over here, we can see now we've got that safety stock, we've got the lead time. Part of the policy when we set these fill rates is how frequently would we like to replenish the product? How much are we ordering? In this case, we're ordering about 30 days worth, which means I would expect that I'll probably get a recommended order every month of about a month's worth. So now we've actually got all the data to do the replenishment. I've got the stock, I've got any custom orders I might have, I've got the purchase orders, I've got all the inventory policy, which of course is dynamic, and I have the future forecast, which again is also dynamic. So consequently, I can actually see what happens in the background. The data is now broken down into daily buckets. You can see the forecast being broken into daily buckets. It's changing day by day as I go into the season. And by the same token, it's changing the minimum stock level and the maximum stock level to suit those changes in future forecast. You can also see it simulating the stock position day by day into the future. So this is essentially what we have here in front of us, a little graphic representation of what's going to happen to this product based on if we order it now according to its ideal requirements. Now, this is not a replenishment report or anything like that, it's just a little screen inquiry, and it takes account of things like any constraints that may have been imposed upon us by our vendors, so any minimum order quantities, any multiples, and in this case, it's 350. So here we can see, here's my physical stock. I sell some, the order arrives. I sell some more, the next order arrives. And then the system kicks in and gives us a plan of what I need to order for the next 12 months, when I need to order it, the quantity, and then when I'm expecting to get that in stock. You can sort of see the recommended orders increasing into the season and then dropping off, all nice and rounded, because I have to order in multiples of 50. The 300 is irrelevant. Not a lot of variation because this is not a highly seasonal product. If we have a look at that other product we were looking at earlier, let's just go back to the dashboard, pick that up quickly, understand that one. And if we look at this one, we have the reverse scenario. So here we can see we're actually going to run out of stock. The order's going to arrive, then we're going to run out again, and then the next orders arrive, and then eventually we'll be back in shape. So it looks like we've got enough on order, but it's arriving a little bit too late. And in fact, we need to operate at a much higher level. So every item gets what we call this ideal inventory profile, which responds to the risk in your business as it changes. So the profiles change and responds to the target fill rates. So that now gives us a clue as to how we can set up our policies to try and achieve the targets we want at the optimum level of inventory. So the first thing we want to try and do is understand how we classify products. And we have a typical Pareto in 2 dimensions, an ABC based on the value contribution of the product to the business turnover, and a velocity based on its movement. So here, products are classified into ABC automatically based on either their history or forecast. That's a system choice, either weighted by cost price, selling price, or margin, and put into 3 different categories based on the percentages that are set. So as it stands on the screen now, if a product is going to contribute 80% towards your revenue stream at cost, it's going to get an A ranking, the next 16% a B, and the bottom 4% a C. And then the same thing here based on the unit of velocity movement of the product. Consequently, that now means we get a grid that looks like this. Across the top, we have our A items accounting for 80% of our turnover. Down here, our fastest movers accounting for 80% of our volume. This little intersection here are our fastest movers and our highest contributors. And you can see how many products are there, the value, the average demand of sales, the current fill rate, what we're targeting to get to. Now, the whole idea of putting it in this 9-block grid is each of these little categories have some unique characteristics. So over here at the bottom, you can see this is 4% of turnover. And you can see, look, we're only selling about $12,000 a month for all 95 products. But they are moving really quickly. Maybe they're little spares that people buy, or little support items, or cheaper things that we sell, but people really expect us to have them because they're like the bread and butter items. So in this instance, why don't we order 3 months of stock of these, or 4 months of stock? Because 3 months is only $36,000. If I order 3 months of this, I'm ordering $4.8 million. If I order 1 week of this, I'm ordering $400,000. So here, let's try and order larger quantities. What about the fill rate? Now remember, the higher the target fill rate you set, the more inventory you're going to need to hold. So by targeting a very high fill rate here, I would expect to hold more inventory, but these items are not very expensive. So what this means by setting this policy of ordering 90 days and targeting 99.99% fill rate, it now means that these products are never going to run out of stock. They're not really going to inflate my inventory in dollar terms. And I won't need to order them that frequently. So I'm going to reduce the number of orders that I place. So essentially, what it means here is that I never run out of stock. I don't order that frequently, and I don't increase my inventory. I get a triple win by setting the right inventory policy. What about these? Well, surely these items, I want to target 99.99% fill rate. Well, absolutely. We can model that and try that, but maybe we can't afford 99.99%. Currently, we're only at 85% fill rate, so maybe we'd have to target maybe 95 as a starting point and see how we move progressively towards a higher target fill rate. And then here we want to try and order as smaller quantities as practically possible. If I'm ordering locally, I want to try and order it a week's worth every week. If I'm ordering from overseas, maybe I need to fill containers, and we have a whole container optimization piece there, but then I'm going to be ordering larger quantities, like say a month's worth or so forth. And then here are my slow moving expensive products. So these are things that might be unique. People might be prepared to wait for these. I can target a lower fill rate. And down here, we have all the products that essentially are dragging the business down. They're not contributing to the revenue stream, and they're not turning. And of course, in any of these cases, I can always click, get a full list of these items. I can download them into Excel if I want to interrogate them, and so forth. So if I had a quick look here, you can see how many items are in this stocking zone, where the red zone, we call it, where we're not actually providing much value for the business. We're merely consuming capital by the amount of stock that we're actually holding. So quite a lot of stock there. Quite a lot of items there. What about the value of the stock? It's probably the second biggest stocking category. And what about demand? Well, all the actions here. So that's probably accounting for about 90% of your turnover. And here we can see we've got about 5,000 SKUs, and probably those 300 accounting for 90% of the turnover. So now we can very quickly and easy set the policy in these little categories. I want 99.99% fill rate for these, and I'm going to order 90 days. Here we're going to target the whole 14 days worth of stock, and we'll go for 95% fill rate, whatever it might be. So you can set that policy. You can click apply. The system will create a model output for you, which we're about to have a look at, and then you can decide whether that actually fits in line with your plans. So let's just quickly have a look at the model. Once we've set those policies, I'll only focus on the A items in this case. Here you can see we've set 340. We've got 340 A items. Our model is our actual stock is 4.3 million, and our model is 4. While we're doing that, what I'm quickly going to do is just target that category. Target that category, reset the policy in that category. So I'm going to go for a higher fill rate, target 99.99% in this fill rate, and I'm going to apply that policy. While that's running, we'll just go back and look at the current situation before we adjust it. So we can see we've got 4.3 million. Ideally, we only need 4 million. We're getting 86% fill rate, but we could be getting 97.6. So what this tells me is the inventory here in this environment is not yet balanced. So how much is perfectly balanced? Well, there's 150 of my top sellers that are in really good shape. They're almost spot on with my model. They're a little bit below the target fill rate because they were outside that ideal gray zone before, but now they're there. They're going to come up for normal reorder, and they'll very quickly move to the target fill rate. What about these? 59 of my most important products, I'm holding 15 times too little stock. I'm getting absolutely smashed in the fill rate, 52% fill rate, and I'm potentially losing, more than $500,000 worth of sales per month. So these items come up for emergency ordering, as do these potential stockouts, not holding enough. What about these? Here are items where I'm holding double what I need. I'm holding double the model. I'm getting a nice fill rate, but I've gone and ordered some more. So if I could cancel or delay these orders, I could save money straight away. And then here I can see products where I'm holding significantly more than I need, 4 times the actual model. Now let's just go back here and apply that change that we made. So remember here, we had this at about, if we went to the totals, we were at a model level of 4 million. In this little category, we sort of moved from 98 to 99.99% fill rate. Let's see what that's going to do in terms of the 2.5 million for this little group. That's the current stock value, and what that's going to change to if we now change that data. So let's look what the refreshed picture looks like. And now we can see that the model stock has actually gone up to 3.1 million. So to increase the fill rate there by 1.9%, we're going to need to invest another $500,000 into the inventory, and probably more, because we've got some items that are in excess, so they're probably above the model level, and we've got some others that are short of stock that we really have to pump some inventory in. So we'll have a look at a projection in a moment, which actually describes that. So every single product in our system now got a forecast automatically. We linked to the data, we downloaded it. Now everything's got a forecast. We took a couple of minutes, we set some policy. Everything now has a safe stock, a lead time, a cycle, a forecast, and has a replenishment plan. But the dashboard is something that actually monitors and tracks our performance on a daily, a weekly, and a monthly basis. Okay, and essentially what we're looking at here are your 6 key KPIs. What we have here is a snapshot of your data at the start in terms of the fill rate that you were achieving and how much stock you were holding, and then what the ideal model level of stock is versus the target fill rate that you'll get out of that ideal model. So here we can see the model and the actual are significantly higher in terms of fill rate and significantly lower in terms of stock based on the ideal. So because we can optimize inventory for the need for holding it based on those risk parameters, we can actually have less stock and a higher fill rate simultaneously. And we can see here, as we've started to place orders in line with that model, the inventory has come down. It's gone from 10.8 to 8.7 million. And the fill rate's gone from 80% up to nearly 87%, but not yet quite achieved the target. So stock's come down by 20%, fill rate up by 7 percentage points, but we have some room for further improvement. Why haven't we got to the model? Well, we had a lot of excess when we started. You can see we've started to manage that excess down. We've now got it down to less than half it was where it was when we started, but it's still a significant number, and consequently, that's why we're going to achieve the model. It's also highlighting for me the worst offenders. So these are actually showing me my worst offenders in terms of excess stock. That's the biggest stock item. You can see the little blue bar descending. And of course, if you want the full list, just click. Same thing here with surplus orders. These are products where I've over-ordered, and when they arrive, they're going to create some excess when they get into stock. It's also highlighting for me where I'm selling more than I expected. So if I just click on this, and if I click on any number, you always get a report. So let's just maybe have a peek at, you can also see which items you manually froze the forecasts on, but let's just have a peek at this. So here, for example, you can see today, 8 days into August, I've sold 30. If we continue to sell at that rate, we're going to sell 116 by the end of the month, but the forecast for the current month is 203. So in fact, if I sell at this rate, I'm going to be 87 units over forecast, which could create a lot of excess. In fact, it's worth about $19,000 because it's quite an expensive item. So if we just went and clicked and had a look at this, we could now sort of see how we've been selling this product. What are we forecasting to sell? It doesn't look too bad. I mean, year on year, you can see I've gone up from that year to that year about 1,150 increased sales, and the forecast is only an increase of about another 900. So it's picked up the growth trend, it's picked up the seasonality, but we're not doing very well in the current period. We're not actually tracking, we're selling less than we expected. Now, the whole point is somebody could review this, decide if they're happy with that forecast or not. If they are, they'll just leave it. If not, we'll go manually adjust it, and then we'll obviously go and capture a comment as to why we did that. Love that comment. Essentially, the whole top part of the dashboard is all about managing the inventory. I'm expecting to see this reducing day by day, week by week, month by month. And what I want to see here is the fill rate going up. So now here it's highlighting for me where I'm out of stock and potentially where I could run out of stock. If I click on this little button, of course, on this item, then you can see that item we looked at earlier. This item is a potential stock out item. You can see it's recognized as such. And you can also see that graphic showing me where I'm going to run out. And of course, if we want real detail, I can see the exact day I'm going to run out of stock, how many days I'll be out of stock for, what the potential deficit is that I need to replenish. Then order is arriving. And then we can see, in fact, in this scenario, we run out again for a couple of days. So the idea of the dashboard is that the dashboard is constantly tracking your performance. This level all about your stock, this level all about your fill rate. And sorry, I didn't cover this, but these are the items where I'm selling more than I expected. So again, if I'm selling more, potential for running out of stock, potential for impacting my fill rate. So the dashboard is all about monitoring my performance and highlighting the problem areas for you. So now we've set some policy. We've now created the system's created the dashboards for us. It's tracking, it's highlighting the worst problems for us so that we can address those exceptions. We haven't looked at replenishment yet, but one other thing we should just do before looking at replenishment is have a look at what we call the projections. So I'll just pre-run this for us. Essentially what this is, remember, if we looked, and maybe what I'll do is just quickly click on an item here. So let's look at a product here as an example in my excess stock list. Here you can see I've got 7 units on hand. And if I look at this product, well, it sold 2 in 1 year, 3 the next year, and 1 the following year. And we're forecasting, and we can see we manually have adjusted the forecast. We're going to sell 2 for the next year. Now, I've got 7 on hand, so it looks like I've got 3 years of stock. So in this case, it's going to take a long time for this product to get down to its maximum stock level, which we're recommending is 2, and its model level, which will be 1, because it will oscillate between 0 and between 2 and 0, and my average should be 1. So if I looked at the projection for this, we can see that it's going to take quite a while for the stock to actually come down to the ideal level. Now, if we can do that by item, and we're tracking the predicted closing stock by day for the next 365 days on a rolling basis, why can't we look at it at a summarized level? Of course we can. And with any of these things, we can look at data at any kind of level. So we can look at it for A items or any type of groupings we might have, or for a specific vendor and so forth. Okay, so what does the projection actually give us here? And please, if you've got any questions as I'm going, I am going pretty quickly. Obviously, there's quite a lot in the product, and I wanted to give you a reasonable feel. Just type some questions in the Q&A, and I'll get to that in a moment. So what am I looking at here? This is just giving me a quick view of where you currently are today. So we were at 8.7 million. If we implement our policy, our stock will go up a little bit, but then it will continue to come down. So we took about 20% out of stock of the first 13 weeks of implementing Netstock. And now we can see we have a potential for reducing by another 20% over the next year. So that looks pretty good. Also, my fill rate's going to improve. Eventually, we're going to get up to about 97%, but it's going to take us a while, probably 4 or 5 months to get there. And the reason for that is I have some very long lead times. So unless we air freight stuff in, being ordered from overseas, it's going to take us a while to try and achieve those targets. We can see my stock turns are going to improve. In fact, I'm going to sell a bit more. I'm going to go from about 2.4 million up to about 3.1 by that period. And consequently, I'm also going to need to order some more. So here's the dollar values that I'm going to need to order. We're also getting a view of what I currently expect to receipt and in which months, and then what I need to receipt over and above that to get me to this desired level. So this gives us a very nice view. If we implement this policy, this looks pretty good. We're going to be going to where we wanted to in terms of inventory reduction and fill rate improvement. And you can continue to dive down, down, down until you get to the very lowest level, which is report by item. But if we just have a quick peek here and we have a look at some of the replenishment, we can see there's my predicted closing stock month by month in the future. And I'm doing this for all the products, but we could have done this for the vendor, for a group of products. But you can see there's quite a bit of excess stock here. And in fact, when we get down to this period here, you can see that the rate of excess reduction is becoming slower and slower. So what this is telling me is we've overstocked some of our products here, but some of those are quite good sellers, so they're going to sell off. But when I get down to here, I'm now into the slow moving stuff, and it's going to take a while to get rid of that extra excess stock that I've got here, and we're going to need to focus on that to get there. You can also see what I'm expected to receipt in on top of what I have. So we need to get quite a bit of stock in to get us to that desired stock level. This is what I've already committed to. Sorry, this is what I'm committing to get, and this is what I already have in the pipeline. So this month, 2.4 million is going to be arriving in, and I'm expecting also to receive another 700 or so thousand in that period based on the new orders I'm going to place. And obviously there's some items with very short lead times, and that's why it's arriving in the same period. And then you can just continue to work your way through seeing, what is the recommended order, when will I be receipting those, and so on and so forth. So now we've set some policy, and we've got forecasts, and we've checked out our dashboards, and we've looked at our projection. Everything looks good. We can go ahead and do some replenishment. So if I click on this little button here, it'll now bring up everything that I need to replenish. It'll bring up all my vendors. Now, as I said, we probably don't have any time to do that, But of course, the software will deal with all sorts of demand streams and all sorts of environments. If I have a look just quickly at this product here, this is a manufactured item. We can see it's made on production line 1. We can see it's made up as part of a BOM. These are all the components that go into it. So when I generate the recommended plan for this, I'm going to be generating a recommended works order. It also happens to be part of a distribution network. So at the top there, you can see a sales forecast as well as a distribution forecast, which means that this central store is actually going to be supplying a number of sub-stores. Here we can see these are all the branches that draw stock from this main store. We can see what their forecast is, what the health of the inventory is. You can see they're okay at the small branch, but I've got 497 units of excess at the small branch too. So what is happening is it's going to each of the locations, working out what we need to send them, when we need to send them that. If I clicked on there, you can see it's saying you should transfer 1,000 to this branch on that date. Obviously not on the screen, there's a report for that, and how I'm going to be transferring over the next number of weeks to them. You can see there's 4 recommended transfers during that period of the month of September. So the software deals with all of those scenarios in terms of replenishment. Let's now just look at the basic level replenishment, the simplest level of replenishment, which is from an external vendor. So when I click on that ordering button, it will now bring up all my vendors and what I need to order from them. And yep, I see doesn't seem to be any questions yet at this point in time. So I'm just going to keep going until people start putting some questions in there. This now brings up all the vendors that you need to replenish from. Let's just look at this top one. And there's this thing called cover forward, which I'll explain in a moment. So looking at this, it's now telling me today you need to order 9 products from the apparel supply co. That's the quantity you're going to need to order, and that's the value. If you've got volume and weight, which we do have for this other ordering example, that will display there, and that can be used in helping us determine things like filling containers, because we have a whole container optimization piece. Let's just get this in this order. Okay, something's changed with some of this data. Sorry. There we go. Okay, you can see this is a production line, and here I have volume and weight information. Here's a vendor, also I have volume and weight. So we'll have a look at that in a moment if we've got some time to do that. So here we can see now, it's telling me to order 9 products, the quantity and the value. Now, this happens to be an overseas vendor, and we've made a decision that really we only want to order this on the 5th of every single month. So I don't really want to be ordering this product during the month if I can help it. So now I have the ability to look forward as many days as I like. In this case, I'm looking forward 30. So what it's now doing is simulating 30 days into the future and saying, what am I going to need to order from this vendor in the next 30 days? And it's picked up that there are another 7 products that are going to drop below the reorder point in the next 7 days or in the next 30 days. So it's added them to the replenishment requirement. And of course, you can look forward as much as you like. If you've got Chinese New Year and you want to bring stuff forward, you can see now the amount and the value has gone up significantly. So let's stick with the 30 as an example. And now let's create that order. So when you click on that button, it'll now bring up all of the products that you need to reorder. It shows you the item, the lead time, the quantity you need to order, when it's actually going to arrive in stock if you place the order, the cost, any constraints you may have. So you can see we have to order in multiples of 16, that's why it's 64, and the value of that order. You can see it's an A medium. Currently, it's out of stock. If you hover over anything, I can see all the outstanding orders there. I can also hover here and see what have I sold for the last 12 months and what am I expecting to sell for the next 12 months. Of course, if you want real detail, just click on the item. You can call it up. You can go and interrogate the forecast. You can look at its projection and so forth. So getting back to that order, the screen, sorry. It brings up all the products. You can sort them in whatever order you like. I'm just going to keep going for a couple more minutes, James, and then we can see if there's any questions.
I've got some questions, so if no one
Okay.
else, I've definitely got some questions. So
All right.
wrap up, and I'll send some your way.
Okay, so I'll just do 3 or 4 more minutes, and then we'll go straight for the questions. So here now I've ranked this in descending order of emergency. So now I can see all my emergency items that I want to order. I could also sort this if I'm very short of money. That's my alarm telling me you're finished. So now here it's highlighting it in terms of the highest value order. You can change anything you like. So I can change this order to 800. Change anything I want, click a button, it'll then go back up to MYOB Advanced or your Sage product or your SAP B1 product and create the actual purchase order. So you just basically work your way through the list, make any changes you want, look for any anomalies, and it also shows you things like this. So for example, look here, ideally order nothing, but the recommended order is 320. Well, let's just click on that recommended order and see. So you can see today's date is the 8th of August, but the first time I need to order this product will be on the 29th of August, 320 I need to order. So why is it coming up for order? Well, remember what we did. We said look forward 30 days. And today's the 8th of August. 30 days takes me to the 8th of September. So consequently, it's included this order, but it's warning you don't need any today. So ideally order nothing, but if you're going to order everything for the month, there it is. And if you want the cumulative plan for the year, just look at the cumulative column. You can see I'm going to order about 3,200 for the rest of the year. And that's my basic ordering plan into the future. Okay, let's get to back to James. Maybe he's got a couple of questions. Maybe you can think of some questions as he's asking a few, and we can respond to those.
No, cheers, Andy. So, I've personally seen this a number of times, and it always strikes me how comprehensive Netstock is around, optimizing inventory. The depth and the breadth of the solution is impressive. The different, angles, that we can interpret stock performance and the like is great. So I guess my question comes from, just being awestruck and just understanding when it comes to enablement of people or users, what does Netstock do to empower users to get across this around, the breadth of the system or the calculations behind the scenes? How do you guys approach that?
Excellent question, right? So firstly, we have a very structured onboarding process. Maybe if I can actually just get to this. So we have quite a structured onboarding process. Part of our process is we initially run a discovery session where we'll try to understand your environment in much more detail. We'll set the inventory goals. So I think this is always very important. What do you want to achieve? Do you want stock down? Do you want fill rate up? Do I want a more efficient replenishment process? So we set all of those goals. Then we create our links to MYOB Advanced, and we get the data flowing. So this is literally the first couple of days of the project, and now pretty much what I've shown you in the demo is now available. Then we go through a process of working with you, looking at your data in the software. Now you start to get to understand what your data looks like in the software, and normally that's about 2 to 5 weeks to go through that process. Now we take you through a very structured learning process, where firstly we have instructor-led training. So we take you with over 3 sessions over 3 weeks. We also have a learning management system. So it's an online learning management system with pre-recorded videos and quizzes and the like. And of course, because we don't charge per user, it's unlimited users is our offering. You can add users in 6 months' time, and then they automatically get sent on these learning journeys. Then we also take you through a whole process where we do forecasting, policy setting, and ordering with you. And that's normally 2 to 3 weeks. And then we let you go through a process of you trying and going through that yourself. So we have a very structured onboarding process. And if you had a look, you can see the bulk of the time is really focused on us trying to help you understand the software and how to use it effectively and make sure that it's configured. I see a couple more questions have popped up.
Yeah, so we've got a question here regarding, I guess, Netstock, how long Netstock has been on the market, how mature the product is.
Yep. So we've been around since 2010. We have close to 400 customers in Australia. We have operations in the US, the UK, Germany, and South Africa. In total, we're heading towards 1,900 ongoing paying customers, and we have customers across all industries, so automotive, pharmaceutical, food, cosmetics, pretty much name it. We're across those: manufactured, distribution, retail, and wholesale. We have big names like Harvey Norman and Rebel Sport and T2, Bupa, right down to some very small customers that have $300,000, $400,000 in inventory.
So another question, just to follow up on that one, is cost. What does it take? What are the software costs? What are the implementation fees? You know, how does Netstock approach that?
Yep. So let's just call that up quickly. So essentially, there's two costs. There's a cost to implement, which essentially will be a one-off fixed fee. So once we've quoted you, that's what it's going to cost, no matter what it takes us to do, unless you want customizations. And then there's a subscription ongoing fee, essentially for unlimited users. Now, just how we do this, because the users are unlimited, is we do it based on your inventory value. So I talked about Harvey Norman. They've got $1.4 billion in stock. We've got some customers that have $400,000 in stock. Clearly, those two entities can't pay the same amount of money. Okay, so we do it based on the inventory value. So, you know, the more inventory you have, the more we can benefit you. So consequently, the more you're going to pay, and generally, the bigger the organization, with the greater the complexity. So I've just done one based on $1 million of inventory. So in that case, to onboard you and take you through the whole training program would be $6,300 if you had $1 million in inventory. Then our basic essential package, which is the essentials without some of the advanced modules, would be $600 per month, as we said, for unlimited users. Now, just so you're aware, and I didn't go through all of that, but from a software point of view, this covers your support as well. So there's no cost for support. Once you go live, support is bundled into that, unless you want customizations. You can have as many users as you like. You never have to pay for upgrades. Upgrades are all automatic, and you can use it on as many devices as you like: tablet, desktop, smartphone, PC, and so forth. You can go to higher levels. So we have an advanced module, which most of our customers in Australia are on. And then we also have an enterprise version where we actually bring some professional services into the equation. So that's at $1 million. If you were 400,000, then you would be less than those prices. If you were 5 million, you'd be more. And that we can obviously discuss with individual prospects based on their environment.
Okay, well, those are all the questions we have. So unless there's anything else you need to cover, Andy, I think we should wrap it up. We're almost heading towards the hour. So I think you've done a great job going through the capabilities of Netstock. Again, very comprehensive solution that bolts onto MYOB Advanced and other solutions. You know, all that historical data, you'll get the benefits right from day one. As soon as it's all online, you'll start being able to interpret and analyze your inventory performance, and then start making real decisions on improving it if necessary. So from myself, Leverage, I'd like to thank the Netstock team for today. You specifically, Andy, well done. Thanks for taking us through that, and Brad and Rebecca, thanks too for your help as well. So to everyone on the webinar, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate your time. If there are any additional questions or anything you would like to discuss, reach out to either Leverage or Netstock. You'll see their contact details on screen to start any discussions and further ideas. All right, so enjoy the rest of your morning, and we'll hear from you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much for the time, James. Appreciate that. And just one last point. Obviously, if there is interest, we'll do a personalized demo for your environment, where we'll structure the demo to actually cover your specific kind of issues. And more than happy to do that. No cost, obviously, for that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.